Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. We are syndicated on Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. You can find us on all the social media sites when they don't take me off, which hasn't been a whole lot here lately. So, I don't know what's happening in the world of that. But anyway, thank you so much for letting us hang around. We've been on social media with Facebook for a number of years. And so you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/D Feazell. And if you would like to pull up any of the episodes with Terri LaPoint, all you got to do is go up to the search issue and just type in Donna Feazell, Terri LaPoint, and you'll be able to pull up every single one of those shows. If you want to go back and check a little bit more about Terri and see how she is and how she stands. Love Terri. I love what she believes in. Same things I do. My same core values. And that's why I like to have you on the show, Terri. Now, folks, continue sending emails. Donna at donnasedge.com. Donna at donnasedge.com. You are not bothering me one bit. It just really makes my day to receive information from you. And I know that you really like the conservative stance, and even to the liberals out there. You guys like watching the show too. I'm not sure why, but maybe it's because I don't do the attack thing. I don't know. But anyway, continue watching, continue sending emails, and I definitely appreciate it. Terri LaPoint is with me, and she is running for Congress. And so I'm glad when you told me you were going to do this, I was like, good. We need a patriot out there that's going to carry along what President Trump wants to do. And so many of your values so line in with mine. I am so sick of the human trafficking, especially when it comes to children. For goodness sakes, what's wrong with people?
Agreed. It's a big issue, and my district, District 3 in Alabama, goes I-20, the I-20 corridor, the trafficking corridor goes right smack dab through the middle of that district. And and then, of course, and we've talked about on the show, the largest supplier of children for the child sex trafficking industry is the foster care system. We've got to address that, and that's got to be addressed federally because it's happening in every state, and it's federal funding that enables it. So, let's just plunge right into the deep stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to mention I-20 because I'm from the Oxford-Anniston area. And even back in those days, in the 70s and the 80s, it was a known fact that I-20, halfway between Birmingham and Atlanta, was funding drugs through. And now I think the whoever these people are up in the hierarchy of the government probably are making a ton of money off of this. And that's why you just can't get it stopped. And I'm talking about child trafficking.
That is become one of the most lucrative businesses in the world because you can sell drugs and it's gone. It's consumed. A child they can consume over and over and over and over, and they can sell them and sell them and sell them. So it's something that
my stomach.
Just even coming out of my mouth. I know these facts, and it's utterly heartbreaking. It's happening right under our noses.
Well, let me tell you something that happened in South Carolina today. South Carolina is one of them states, don't mess with me. And, when when the king things were happening, I really like what the governor sent out. And he said, this is a peaceful state, and we're going to keep it that way. And he said, anybody who gets in there and they start showing out, we're going to arrest you. I mean, that's what he said. You are arrested. But this is what happened today. The Supreme Court on Thursday blocked Planned Parenthood from suing South Carolina over the state's decision to pull the organization's Medicaid funding because it provides abortions. Way to go, South Carolina.
Yay, bravo, South Carolina. That's awesome. That is so good because and Planned Parenthood, they fund abortions. They've been using taxpayer dollars. They prey on the weakest among us, the poorest among us. And what I found out, and I was it on your show we talked about how they're actually funding a lot of the transgender surgeries and the transgender stuff. So they're targeting kids. They're targeting kids. And it's
kids are not developed yet, Terri, and you know this because you're telling me. So they're not developed yet, and so many have been interviewed after they've done it, and then they wake up and they're in their 20s and they're like, I wish I hadn't done that, because they're
Right.
sold on the fact that I'm a boy, I think I'm a girl, I'm going to have the sexual pleasures of a girl, but they have no pleasures.
No pleasure. Yeah, that they don't tell them that it takes away any sexual. They will never have sexual pleasure ever again in their life once they do the surgery, whether it's male or female.
Hmm.
That is ended.
Hmm.
So yeah,
And
it's not informed choice. As a
it,
doula, I was all about informed choice, and they're not informing these kids, and the kids aren't old enough to make these decisions.
well,
Go
what
ahead.
kind of parent? I mean, because in some cases the parent knows about it. Now, some of the school systems, they're in Alabama too now. Some of the
Mhm.
school systems, they don't want the parents to know. Why would you not want the parent? This is a monumental decision you would make in your life.
I remember it's like when you tell a child a secret and you say don't tell mom and dad. People that say that tend to be predators. You don't People don't keep secrets, and people don't counsel kids to keep secrets from mom and dad unless there's a predatory aspect in there, or a grooming aspect. I mean, and I'll stand by that. You Parents need to know what's going on with their kids,
Mm-hmm.
and parents have the responsibility. I mean, you come home and your child's suicidal or they've got some kind of horrible reaction, you're responsible as the parent. You've got to get them help, and you don't even know what happened. How can you be responsible for taking care of them and getting them the proper care? You can waste hours, precious hours, in finding the right answers because you don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's literally life and death. I know they try to use that. If you don't transgender your child, then they're going to be suicidal. Isn't that what they used on Elon Musk? And it's baloney. Let me tell you something else I found out. Did I that the transgendering of the kids? There's we know of a little boy who was in the foster care system. The foster parents were wanting to adopt him, but they wanted a little girl, not a little boy. They transgendered this kid, did the whole thing. This little boy is no longer a little girl. It wasn't that the little boy necessarily wanted to do that. And I've also learned that the foster care system is where they were doing some of these experimental surgeries, kind of perfecting their art. Have we talked
Mm-hmm.
about this? Did I tell you about this? This is crazy.
You're
Like,
making me even more mad.
yeah, well, because, and I've known about this since 2014, that you can legally use a foster child for medical research, drug testing without their parents' knowledge or consent. There's loopholes in the laws. So day one, when I'm elected, day one, we're going to redo Representative Michelle Bachmann's bill. Remember her? She
Yeah.
had a bill back then that said you can't use federal funds to use
Mm-hmm.
foster kids as lab rats. That in the vernacular, just in common language, that's what it said. You can't use them for experimentation. On my day one, that will be the first bill I file to let's get this done, to
Okay, so
stop
let
using
me ask you, I
experimenting
know
on.
you don't want to bash the person who's in office right now. I know you don't. That's not your personality, but I just got to know this. How did all of this happen to begin with when you're supposed to have someone in office who cares? Someone who is supposed to be a conservative. How did we
I,
get to this point?
It's a
That's
good question. I think that there's been a lot of people in Congress who have been afraid to make waves and afraid to be the one out there sticking their neck out. So they've not gone out there and really boldly stood up for things that affect families. They're standing up for all kinds of other issues, but I don't know that we've had really anybody that's really gone to the mat and said, I'm fighting for families. I'm fighting for what's right. And I don't care if nobody's following me right now. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start, and y'all come on.
Mhm.
I'll do that. I will absolutely do that, because I think when people understand that something's really happening, the things that are happening, and they've got somebody that they can follow, somebody that's putting their neck out first, and they're like, okay, well, I didn't start this, so they can go and follow. Okay, yeah, yeah. If y'all need that, I can be that person for you.
Mhm.
So
I know you can, and I know you will. As a matter of
I've done it
fact,
before.
you made the national platform with your book.
Hmm.
that you have written. So let's talk about that for just a few minutes. I know that people you need to find the book and you need to read it. It'll give you a little bit more as to how Terri LaPoint thinks and her core values.
Yeah. All right. Voices. Look at the lighting. Okay. Voices that will not be silenced. There's a baby that was taken. This is an Arkansas story, but it happens all over the country. The things that happen in this book happen everywhere. There's nothing in this book that doesn't happen in other places. Federal funding enables it. So the baby was taken, should have been taken from a young mom. Grandma wanted to step in and be there and help, but they adopted the baby out to strangers. And then the mother was killed by an illegal. Um, who gets to come up for parole every 2 years. He finally did go to prison for his crimes, but he gets to come up for parole every 2 years, which is crazy. We shouldn't have illegals coming up for parole, because parole, you kind of watch them when they get out of prison, but we can do that with American citizens, but if they're here illegally, they're going back to their country, so we're not monitoring them. So we just need to get rid of that for violent criminals. But that's a kind of another issue. The grandmother became good friends with a senator, Linda Collins Smith, who was investigating illegal immigration and judicial accountability and foster care system. And they uncovered a ton of evidence about trafficking through the foster care system, where they were just about to expose it when tragedy struck. So it's very detailed. It tells you things the media never told you about. But I learned something since I've talked to you last. There's been some really good news that's come out of this book. So it's a book that will wake people up. It's a page turner. It's not something that's dry and boring.
You're not going to put it back. You'll want to continue reading it. So make sure you've got plenty of time when you get the book.
Yeah, it's action packed, but it's all true. And there's a judge in there. There's a couple of judges in there that you will not like, that are doing wrong things that clearly you will not like. But one of the judges recently announced her retirement all of a sudden, and then the very next day she was gone. She's been there 34 years destroying families, and her term's not up until the end of 2026.
Why would you not just wait until January 2026?
Well, I was told that the book had a lot to do with it. That the book had a lot to do with it, and that she was told that she might need to step down because there might be some investigations.
Yeah.
So I don't have the source for that. I was told about is like confidential. But the fact that she retired, that's public news. You can just Google it.
Yeah, when you would just be 6 months into retiring.
No, a year and 6 months.
A year and 6 months. But still, a year and 6 months, I'd hang on another year and 6 months.
Right.
Unless I was guilty of something.
Yeah. So, I mean,
that's good news.
If the book never accomplished anything else but that would be good. But people, when they read it, they're like, oh my gosh. I didn't know. I didn't know that this was happening. And so my friend down the street, this neighbor that, we thought this craziness, oh my gosh, is this what she went through? Is this what they went through? And so, we can help to support people who are being falsely accused, because many parents lose their kids because they're falsely accused. Happens all the time.
Is that done on purpose through various means?
I believe it has to be. And this is why. It's the numbers. Less than 16% of parents that lose their kids, and less than 16% of the kids are taken for reasons of allegations of any kinds of abuse. So that, well over 80%, there's no abuse allegations. Neglect can be anything. It could be the person down the street running a crack house or running a meth lab. It could be, and those kids need to be protected and they need to be taken out of that place. But it could be goldfish crackers on the carpet when a social worker comes by. It could be false allegations. Somebody was vindictive and they made up something and they got their foot in the door and they took these kids. Children, back to the numbers, only 80%, no, I'm sorry, 17%, 80% are are not substantiated. So 17% of the allegations against parents are even substantiated. It's not hard to substantiate. They can substantiate, they can and do, based on lies, planted evidence, um, hearsay. Alabama law permits hearsay in family court. That's insane. So kids are taken from innocent families. And what I've been told by several whistleblower in the system is that children who are truly loved, they're adoptable. They're kids that have good homes. They're loved. They are adoptable. The kids that are truly in need of the help that we taxpayers fund these organizations to do, they're considered damaged goods who are unadoptable and therefore not eligible for as many of the funds. And so they get thrown back and forth and keep on jostling them, and they don't truly protect them. It's disgusting.
You know something? There are people that are on jobs who have no clue what. And I'll give you a scenario. Okay, so when Phil and I were living in Charlotte, North Carolina, we lived there for 9 years. We lived in a nice neighborhood. It's cul-de-sac. All nice neighbors, just loved them. But we were part of the homeowners association. So there was this little young chick, apparently just right out of college, would walk around all over the neighborhood, just picking for little tiny things, like anything. Like wrote one of my neighbors up because she said she could see the trash can. So
That
my
sounds
question,
remarkably like what I've been told. When I put two and two together and finally figured out that this was going on, that why they were doing this, I heard from somebody who quit the system and said that they would be. I want to say it was maybe Colorado or something. Sometimes on a slower day, their supervisor would say to drive around particular neighborhoods because they needed a blonde hair 3-year-old girl with green eyes, and that somebody wants to adopt. So go find one and make up some kind of reason to take them.
no doubt that that's happening. And let me tell you something I wanted to know from this little chick who was walking around with a little clipboard. Did she even own a home? She lived in an apartment. She has no idea what it's like to own a home, mow lawn, do all this kind of stuff that you do to upkeep for your house. She got one of our neighbors, and these people were like really, really nice people. They kept their yard up. But she found a little patch on the side of the house where it needed to be cleaned. So she wrote them up for that. And I made that point to say your point. Okay, a lot of people are in the system who've never had kids before. They've never had messy kids. Will make a mess. I'm just telling you.
They do. Yes. Yes.
What Brad used to do when Brad would be sitting in his high chair, I would feed him oatmeal. Well, you don't want to you want them to know how to feed their own selves. Well, when they start feeding their own selves, they're going to make messes. Okay, they're going to get
Absolutely.
it on their face. They're going to put it on the dog. They're going to do all kinds of stuff. And then if that little surprise person comes in who's never had a kid before in their entire life, they don't know what it's like. Maybe they've never even had siblings before, and then they see that, they think, oh, red flag, those kids are being mistreated. So people are being like messed over in family life because of trivial things from people who've never had a kid before.
I remember doing an article. A teacher sent me something where they had training in Alabama of things that it was a mandatory training from DHR. They had to look out for certain red flags and report these things. They were told they needed to report them. One of those was if they don't come properly dressed for the weather.
Do you know how many
times? My brothers would take their coat. Grandmama would make sure they had their coat when they left their house. They'd throw it in the bushes on the way to the bus stop, and they would come to school without the coat in the cold weather because they didn't need it. They were hot. They just didn't feel like they needed it. That is no reason to take a kid. And you know what? If they don't have the proper coat because they're too poor, that's a poverty issue. Maybe you can get with the Baptist church down the street. I'm sure that they would love to have a little ministry that would provide coats for families in their community that need that just can't afford a winter coat for their kids. I mean, there's resources. Help connect. A social worker, by definition, should be able to connect the people with the resources they need. but they've become quasi law enforcement. Well, not even law, quasi something enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is another thing that's always kind of blown my mind. It's when there are people really who don't need their kids. They really are. And I know that, and I'm going to just going to shock you. I actually believe in this food stamp program. Not as a way to, like, let this be a career choice, but I'm just saying sometimes it can be like a divorce, or it could be my husband just lost a job. A million things can happen where you need some help just for a few weeks. So I believe in that program. So there are some people who actually get that, but then they'll sell it to somebody on the streets and use it for alcohol or for drugs, stuff like that. So there are programs that are out there, and again, not as a career choice, not of your life and your kids' lives and all that. But I'm just talking, there are areas out there where you can be helped. And again, like you said, the local Baptist church, my goodness, there's a Baptist church. Nobody feeds like the Baptist. You go
right. Go dinner on the ground. I mean, we're in Alabama. So, I mean, yeah. and then, but then not only you got the Methodist church, they're big in social programs. You got your Pentecostal churches, you got churches, you got any kind of church you want. The Catholic church are like the most pro-life, but so we've got, I mean, at least in Alabama and in the deep South, we've got the resources, but sometimes it takes somebody just making those connections, connecting those dots. Mm-hmm. Somebody just needs a little bit of help.
Oh, let me tell you something. If you move into an area like we did, we moved into Abbeville, South Carolina. So we were in need of someone to help with an appliance. All you've got to do is find that town's Facebook page. And I'm just telling you, people will come to rescue for you. So I said, and we ask for stuff all the time, not free stuff. I'm just saying we need like to hire someone to do something. Mm-hmm. And so we needed somebody to help with one of the acreage out there. We needed somebody to take, kind of clean it off just a little bit. So we sent an email, bang, like that day we got somebody out there. We needed help with, had a leaking dishwasher. Bang! All we did was put it out there on the Facebook page. So if you're in need of anything, you can find your community's Facebook page. I promise you, somebody's going to help you. They're going to direct you to a church that's going to help. They're going to, whatever you need.
Right.
You're going to get some help.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the South, we like feeding you and stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I remember a friend.
We're going to be all over it.
I remember a friend going through a divorce. He left right at Thanksgiving. And so there was Christmas. My kids said, let's help these kids because they're not going to have much of a Christmas. So they wanted us to take half of what they were going to get and give it to them. That lady, it's been 20 years. That lady still every now and then talks about how much that meant to her kids, just that Christmas, because my kids helped pick out the toys for them. And get your kids involved. Kids love helping other kids.
Yeah,
they really do.
You're teaching them lifelong lessons. These kids are going to remember that the rest of their lives, how they helped somebody at Christmas time.
Mm-hmm. And it's not that hard to do. There's the widow with her mites, or she gave everything she had, and you can't outgive God, So anyway.
That's where it goes. I wanted to ask you something else, and because I know that in the past, there are some laws that should have been passed within the last, say, 6 years. We'll just go back 6 years. What are some of those laws that you would have passed that were not passed?
Oh my goodness. Put me on the spot. I know that there's tons of them. I'll see them, but I don't necessarily remember them. I know in Alabama, we've been trying to pass a parental rights bill that just says DHR, the Constitution, and your own policies do that. We couldn't get that passed. Transgendering kids,
That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Shouldn't that have been stopped a long time ago?
Yeah. We shouldn't be doing this with kids. And this is bipartisan. We've got, of course, the left, the Democrats, for the most part, are champions of the LGBTQ rights and all of that. But I remember with Family Forward Project, because that's a bipartisan group fighting for families, for exposing what's going on with Child Protective Services. And there was a Democrat. I was walking through the halls of one of the Congress buildings, and we saw one of the TVs on, and it was talking about transgendering children. And she says, that is so ridiculous. They should not be doing that to children. And she's a Democrat, but she had sense enough to know that you shouldn't be cutting parts off of children, making a permanent decision for the rest of their lives with children. And I really think that we Republicans and Democrats, the rank and file people across this country, are much more united on that than the media would have us to believe.
I think
I,
so.
yeah.
Now, what is the talk
Children.
of, because you're in D.C. a lot, and even
Mhm.
before you started running for office, you're there
Oh,
for
yeah.
various things, to try to make this a world that should be friendly for kids, and not disrupt
Mhm.
their lives. So, what are some things you've heard in D.C. that you may see could possibly be trending the right way?
Well, of course, we've got Donald Trump at the helm, so that is so good. We're seeing, I think we're seeing a little more courage to do some of the right things, but I think we've still got so many of the old school guys that are, just this is the way
Yeah,
we've done it. This is the way we've always done it. We don't need any little uppity upstarts, trying to make waves and stuff. But we need people in there that will say, come on, let's do the right thing. Let's stand up for what is right. Even if somebody in the media, even if CNN tells you that you're a racist, you're not, or you're a whatever, and you hate gays. I don't hate gays. I just don't think that they should be grooming children, and I don't think that they should be targeting children and changing their sex and cutting things off. I don't think you should be cutting anything off that you know that's crazy.
I know this sounds like a remarkable thing, but what about just letting kids be kids? Can we just do that?
Boy, howdy, boy, you've said a mouthful. Isn't that instead of drugging? We drug them in class. I'm gonna tell you something that I heard the other day. That somebody in the school system uh, said that almost every kid in that grade in the elementary school, almost every one of those kids was on some kind of medications, on some kind of drugs. Now, I know that there's medication. I mean, if you're diabetic, of course, you got to have your insulin,
Mhm.
obviously.
That's the given.
But, but, and, but we don't need every kid on psychotropic medicines. And we are drugging our kids into oblivion. We're making them I don't know, more compliant in the classroom, but they're not learning to think critically. They're not learning to analyze. But there's federal funding, because every child that's in the classroom that you get that's on medication that's special needs, you get more federal funding for that. And I think that one of the main things we need to do is stop all this gravy train for making kids sick and for making kids and for destroying families. We've got the financial incentives. If you tell somebody, well, you got a class of 20 kids, and every kid that you put on medication, or every kid that you can get put into foster care, you're going to get this bonus. Every kid that you get to paint a pumpkin pie with chocolate chips on it, you're going to get extra money for it. Then you're going to end up having every kid in that class is going to paint a pumpkin pie with chocolate chips on it because you're going to get more money for it. I mean, it's just simple supply and
I
demand.
just got to mention this. Okay, so if I were in school now, I would be labeled as one of those kids that would have to take, Ritalin or something. Because I was like all over the place. I had this imagination. I was always looking out the window. I was always, because my mind, in my mind, I could listen to the teacher and use my imagination looking out the window. I mean, I could do that.
What? Imagine multitasking.
So imagine that. So I would be put on Ritalin now. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, by the way, your teacher could conquer you because first of all, she had the authority to do something to you if you weren't paying attention. You could get the old board education, you get paddling sent to plus she'd call you parents. Then your parents would give you another dose of it when you got back home. So this is my whole point right here. Have there been any studies going back to say the last couple of decades where kids have been put on Ritalin that really did not need to be put on Ritalin.
Oh, I know that there are studies. I run across them every now and then. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we've got people that are not qualified doing the diagnosis, but there's not, as I could be wrong, but I think that I'm right here, that there's not like a test to see, a definitive objective test to see if a child has ADHD or something like that. There are subjective things, but there, I mean, if the doctor's getting a kickback, how trustworthy would that
Or
would that diagnosis be?
The Department of Education could be getting some kickbacks big time on that. But let me tell you how I got conquered one time. Okay, I was having a party, So
Hearty, we used to say.
So I was having a good old time, and so the teacher had already told my dad, she's talking, she's not doing it, she's making her good grades, all this kind of stuff. But now she talks to her friends and stuff while I'm trying to teach sometimes. So Dad said, one more time, you're going to be embarrassed to the hilt. And so what happened is I was talking with my friend Vicky. Vicky had turned around and we were talking, and Vicky looked around at me and she turned back around in her seat. Well, I thought, what's that about? I turned around. My dad was standing right there in the doorway with his arms crossed, watching me. There was a hole being burned in the back of my head. I didn't do it again.
I bet you didn't.
Stopped me, and I didn't have to be beat to death at home for that to happen. That works better than anything else. So I'm just telling. And another way I got conquered one time. It was before that. The teacher said, "Here's what I'm going to do to you girls." It was us girls more than the boys. She said, "The very next time you're sitting there talking, you're not listening to me during class, I'm going to draw a circle in the corner. And you're going to have to put your nose in that circle." And that stopped me. That embarrassed me. I didn't do that anymore. I thought twice about that. So there are things that you can do and teach a lesson to these kids, without, oh, you're mistreating them. It didn't mistreat me. I learned how to listen in class.
I remember in one year having to write a copy out of the encyclopedia. Why? Just because I talk too much. So here's an encyclopedia. Write. And I had to copy. I just opened it up. I had to copy and write it out. And my penmanship had to be decent. And just had to write that out. And then there was another teacher that he would he'd say, you're talking, give me 500 backups. Do you know what backups are?
Mm-mm.
You start at 500, you write 500 minus 2 is 498. 498 plus 1 is 499. 499 minus 2. So you did that was my.
Yeah, but you know what we both learned? We both learned that there's a consequence for your actions.
Right. And if you argued with him, he'd say, "Oh, make that 600." You argue again. "Oh, you want to do 750? Oh, so you learn." And the person next door, "Oh, you want to join it? You got 500 also." So I mean, that shut it down because those things are.
It's a wonderful thing. It takes that you're accountable for your actions, and I think we need more of that. You know what? We went just a little bit past the commercial break. Let's go ahead and go back into the commercial break.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020. We're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching. For the past 20 years, it was 20 years in April. And guess what date that was? Terri, it was April 1st. And the reason it was April 1st is Tom Williams actually gave me my first chance. And so we said, first of all, I said, I've never done anything like this in my entire life. Are you kidding me? I've only owned businesses. I haven't done anything else. I've got management background, and that is it. And he said, well, I think you can do it. And I said, but I'll forget my name. I said, I'm the type of person, I forget what I had for breakfast that morning. You expect me to actually host a talk show? He said, it's going to be different. You'll be able to do it. So I get up there, and it was love at first sight. I've been doing it ever since, and I have absolutely loved it. 20 years of it. And you can go back to YouTube and see some of those shows from 20 years ago. I mean, it's just like enlightening, but it's just the world's easiest job, because the show's not about me. It's about my guests and about my sponsors. And I definitely appreciate you guys being part of it. Continue sending emails, by the way, Donna@donnasedge.com. Terri is a regular guest on the show. So if you have some questions for Terri next time she's on the show with us, please go ahead and send those. And I won't even send them to Terri. I just won't do it, because I promise you, she thinks very fast on her feet. That's why she's running for office. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. How can folks contribute to your campaign?
I've got a website, Terri LaPoint for Congress.com. Real easy. You can go there, and there's a donate tab, and it takes you to how you can donate. If you want to get some friends together and do a meet and greet, I'd love to meet your friends and talk about things that are important to you, to Alabamians, and concerns that you have. One of the reasons I'm running for Congress in DC as opposed to Alabama is because so many of the problems that we have and the situations that we're dealing with start with federal funding. And that's the House of Representatives, not the Senate, that starts those bills. That's why I want to go there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
You'll do a great job there, because I know you do research. And, a lot of folks just throw something together. You've written how many years of research did you do for that book that you wrote? I mean, it's just, you don't just put a book together.
Oh, yeah. It took 3 years of writing the book and another year of getting it out there. So, that was a 4-year process, and then several years of researching what Child Protective Services and all of that. I've been doing that since 2014. I started as an investigative journalist, and I love your tagline about truth, because truth matters so much to me. I want to know the truth. I don't want to know what media wants us to believe. I don't want to know what some politician expects us to think. I want to know the truth, and I'll tell you the truth. Ask anybody who knows me. I'll tell you the truth. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I know. You're exactly that person. And if you don't know, you'll find out.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's extremely important. Now, there was a Supreme Court decision about transgendering, and we touched on that. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, it was a Tennessee case, and the Supreme Court last week upheld a ban that Tennessee has on transgendering children. Thank God. I'm hoping that this can go further, but now states can uphold their own bans on doing the surgical mutilation of children and that. So that's just amazing. I think that's going to open the door for a lot of good things to protect our children, to truly protect them.
I think so too. Now, there's a dinner that you've been talking. Let's go ahead and talk about that.
Okay, so I'm with the Republican Women of Trustful Alabama. we last year did a Voices of Freedom dinner. Our board wanted to do it on trafficking. So we did that last year and they said, let's continue to do that. So it's about trafficking. There are, it's going to be on July the 24th. So just under a month. And on a Thursday night, the food's going to be catered by Tambura's Italian. Oh, so good. Food is amazing. And we're going to have people talking about trafficking. That's going to be the whole focus of it. We've got some people even coming in from out of state because they're interested. Kathy O'Brien is the keynote speaker. She is an MK Ultra survivor. She was trafficked and her child was medically kidnapped and trafficked. So she was literally the first person really to expose in the MK Ultra CIA program. So it's going to be intense. It's going to be
Let me
really.
ask you a question. What is medically kidnapping? What happens there?
Okay, so that means when hospitals or doctors are involved in the reasons that the child is taken, a medical disagreement, or it can actually mean that they're being put on drugs unnecessarily, or being experimented on after they're taken.
Mm-hmm.
I was the lead investigative journalist for medicalkidnap.com for several years. So what I was investigating, I just wanted to find out what was going on. They asked me to come on. Would you be interested in us hiring you to investigate these stories? And I said, yes, I want to know what's going on. So that's what it was simply really searching for the truth. What's going on? We had no idea how many kids are being taken for medical kinds of reasons. And it figures into whether it's in the taking of the child or the once they're taken, the over medicating them, about 80% of the cases. And then there's also the medical kidnapping of adults, because adult protective services and guardianship abuse, we're taking senior citizens out of their homes and isolating them from their families. And so it happens with adults too. It's crazy.
I would like to see something out there, and I know you've thought about this. When kids leave and go on senior trips, Natalie Holloway.
Oh, yeah.
Happened to her. Is there more protection that could be done for those kids when they leave the country or they go to an island somewhere? Because I'm just telling you, when kids get away from their parents, they go hog wild. And they do things they shouldn't do. They drink. And I know they have chaperones, but is there other protections that can be for kids who are out of the country or on an island somewhere to have more protection?
That's a good question. Maybe some of the chaperones, maybe, we have the parents, maybe we get some older siblings that are invested in protecting those kids, that are kind of hanging out with them more, but not letting them go out on their own. I think we've got to educate kids before we get, I went as a summer missionary to Chile, South America, and all of when I was in college, and all of the ones who were going to South America, we had some training, several days of things to protect us and to help us to know what to expect when we were going there. So before the senior trip, let's have some training, some classroom training, or, that these are things to watch out for. And the buddy system, maybe, there's got to be some other things that we can do. And I think some citizens could probably come up with some really good ideas, and I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, because there's kidnappings that happen there as well. And I understand you go on a senior trip, you go to the beach somewhere, you're going to wear a bathing suit. But maybe a little bit more conservative than what you're seeing out there, because those predators, they are looking for that, and they're looking for kids who have never been out of their home state before. They know, because they don't know, kids don't, you've been protected your whole life, and thank God for parents who do protect their kids. But sometimes when they get away from the parents, they let it all hang out. So, there has to be something. That thing with Natalie Holloway, that happened what, 2 decades ago?
I very much remember that. Yeah, that was 20 years ago, over 20 years ago now. And yeah.
And that's something you can bring back as a parent. When they go off, that mother had to be going. That would have driven me crazy.
Oh, I know. I remember crying and praying for her. I mean, I don't know her, but I prayed a lot for her. My heart broke for her.
Mhm.
And so there's, what if we have some law enforcement that, what if we have some law enforcement that goes there and have some kind of a reciprocal arrangement where, they're a detective, maybe an undercover detective or somebody who can, well, if the law enforcement in that country is crooked, what are you going to, I mean, that's going to be hard.
Maybe
But
we need to have better decisions on where they go on campus.
right. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm just telling you, there are some places I would not want to go myself, let
Right.
alone a pretty little 16-year-old girl.
And they are being targeted. I mean, these kids they're becoming targets. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Because there's some good looking guys now, some good looking girls that live in
Oh,
these
I mean,
other.
guys can be taken too.
Mm-hmm.
When they, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what the whole thing's all about. And I wanted to ask you another question. This doesn't necessarily apply to the organized crime per se, which is what you're out there to help. But I'm talking about parents, and I heard this from a lady who is with an organization in North Alabama, and so I'm thinking all organized crime, kids being taken, that kind of thing. She said, Donna, it happens with your neighbors. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, there are people who are so strung on drugs that they will personally rent their kids out for sex so they can get more money.
It's disgusting. And when those parents are caught, they need to be not let off with some kind of a slap on the wrist. They need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and they need to be made an example of.
Mm-hmm.
That's inexcusable to treat your child like that.
I mean, I can't. And I said, that's not happening. It's happening in Chicago, New York. She said, no, it's happening right here.
We need revival. We need Jesus. They need Jesus.
I need revival too, so I don't smash people like this in the head. I mean, it's just,
right.
I really do, because there's nothing to me more upsetting than you ruining a child's life for yourself. For
Yeah.
your little
Agreed.
needs. Absolutely.
Agreed. And we do need to help each other, but help each other, because sometimes the help is worse than the problem in the first place. So there's a balance that we got to weigh there, and it takes a lot of wisdom.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Israel and support
Okay.
Israel, because I know you have some thoughts on that as well.
Well, Donna, I have lived by the verse that says, I will bless Israel. I will bless those who bless Israel, and I will curse those who curse Israel. That's scripture. That's right there. And there's we have to support Israel. They are our closest ally in the Middle East. Absolutely, we have to support them. Now, are there bad actors? Are there people that are corrupt in Israeli government and American government? Well, of course
Yeah.
there are. Of course there are. We need to have that exposed. We need to deal with that. But we can never turn our backs on Israel, and we can't do like previous administrations have done with sending huge pallets of cash to those who are terrorists that are in Iran that are funding. I
And
just don't
ammunition. How about some of it? They've sent ammunition. You want to send ammunition to
ammunition. Or let's get some people out of Afghanistan. Bring our military out of Afghanistan. Just leave them a whole battlefield full of weapons for them to take.
Okay, what would make sense about that
insane.
whatsoever? That does not make sense to me. Why you would do that to somebody who wants you killed? People who say death to the United States, and you want to give them ammunition? Does that make any sense?
No, it doesn't. And people need to realize, when we talk about Iran, I remember when we were old enough to remember the Iranian hostages. I was in junior high when they were negotiating. They had all these Iranian hostages, and they were taking they were doing bad things, and that was just a constantly in the news cycle. I heard people say, "Well, I don't know." I don't know anybody who was killed by an Iranian. Well, I did. I didn't know him, but I went to college with the widow of one of the soldiers that was killed in Beirut, Lebanon, back in the 80s, early 80s, and I mean, she was precious, and she lost her husband in that. So it's real people that they've come after. They went after, Hamas went after all those kids. Kids. It wasn't a military they used it as a military operation on October 7th, but those were kids. Those were teenagers. Those were young adults at a music festival. My goodness. My kids go to music festivals. I cannot, and I can't fathom how you justify and you say it was okay for them to take those kids hostage and kill them, murder them, and defend those who did that. Of course, Israel had a right to defend themselves. Of course, Israel had a right to go and get those people back. The world did not do enough after October 7th. And finally, we have a president who is being decisive and who is saying, "You want to mess around and find out? Okay, I told you." He told them, "You got some time to make the right decision. You can't have a nuclear bomb. We can't have Iran." Democrat and Republican presidents have said all along that Iran cannot get nuclear capabilities. They are the playground bully. They've been bullying people for a long, long time. And finally, somebody come up and said, "You gonna quit giving those kids a swirly. You gonna quit taking this kid's lunch. You gonna quit beating up these kids." And Iran says, "Well, so what you gonna do about it?" And President Trump says, "Well, I'm gonna do something about it. You are going to stop being the playground bully." And I absolutely support that.
I do too. And over the weekend, President Trump's speech with I'm telling you, these guys behind him, you can't ask for a better team than that. That made me feel
I know,
so
yeah.
much more secure. And when President Trump mentioned God twice,
yes.
I mean, how long has it been since we've heard that? Reagan? Was that the last time?
Genuinely, Reagan. Others may use the name, but actually mean it. Yeah.
Well, you have to wonder what God some of these other people are talking about. Which one? Because there are a number of fake gods out there, But Trump almost had this little emotional tear come out when he said, "I love God. We love God." When he said that, it was just like because there are fake people all over the place. But
yeah,
I don't. It was not.
That was so genuine. That was so genuine and raw. And I don't think he wanted to do it. I really don't think he wanted to do it. I don't think anybody who in their right mind wants to bomb anybody. I mean, there's that. You remember back in the 70s, bomb, 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 Iran, bomb, bomb, bomb. It was a fun song to sing as a kid because of the rhythm. I mean, it's Barbara Ann. It was a Beach Boys song. But nobody in their right mind wants to bomb people. Nobody in their right mind wants to have casualties. But everyone in their right mind wants to take out nuclear bombs.
But there were
playground
bullies. What's to argue about? There were zero
casualties. That in itself is a miracle. Surgical strike. That's the way to do it. He didn't want to have to go in there and do it, but he was put in a position where somebody's got to be the grown up, put your big boy pants on and do what needs to be done. And I don't think this is going to be a big protracted thing. Yes, we've got the ceasefire, but I think that the rest of the world, it's not just Iran, it's North Korea, it's Russia, it's China, it's the other bullies on the playground that say, well, this one ain't one we can mess around with. I think we're gonna slink back in our hole and not be doing.
And world peace. Joe Biden to come in or Kamala Harris.
Yeah, which is why we've got to have good conservative people in there. Again, nobody in their right mind wants war. Nobody does. But reality says that there's a time that you got to quit appeasing. And that's, you cannot appease your way out of things. And I'm talking as one who was bullied on the playground. I got beat up.
Mm-hmm.
I did. And I figured out, and it was really not till I became an adult that I realized, there's times you got to stand up and fight. And sometimes you fight with words. Sometimes you fight with diplomacy. Every time you ought to be fighting in prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time. You should never ever go into any battle without covering it in prayer and spiritual warfare. But there's sometimes that there's decisive action that is needed. And I'm not in Congress now yet. So I wasn't given the congressional briefing right after that, but I saw that all of our guys came out in support of President Trump in Alabama. So I mean, and they knew things that we don't, and I have to trust that President Trump and those guys that you were talking about standing behind him, they have access to intel that we don't have access to.
It was finally men out there supporting. It was finally men, not men dressed in mini skirts with high heels. I mean, like men. That were out there. Terri, we're going to have to go in just about a minute, a little bit less than a minute. How can folks contribute to your campaign?
Go to Terri LaPoint for Congress.com. And Terri is spelled with an I. You can go to the website and you can contact me. I'm on Facebook. There's Terri LaPoint for Congress Facebook page, and then my personal Facebook page, Terri LaPoint. I post a lot of stuff there as well. I'm on X, and I'll get on the others soon. Oh, I know we forgot. Oh, veterans, y'all. I come from a long line of veterans. And I have my biological dad's flag, and I got that at his funeral. That was, if you've never been in that kind of situation, that is one of the most heart-rending when they're playing taps and they hand you that flag. I have my grandfather's flag, and my aunt, when she found out that I'm running for Congress, sent me. I may not be able to get it in time, but she just mailed it. I just got it. It came in the mail. My great uncle's flag. He was a colonel in the army. He met presidents, and she just sent me. She had his flag, and
well, it's fitting for you to have it. So when you win this office, you'll have to display that big time.
These 3 flags will be in my office. I know you got to get going here, but boy, she packed it up tight.
Well, I'm just honored that you want to display it here on my show.
It's coming, maybe. Here we go.
I can't wait for this. This is awesome. And remember, you don't have to get in contact with Terri if you'd like to contribute.
This is my Uncle Donald, great Uncle Donald. He served all over the world.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm feeling chills. I'm feeling chills, Terri. I'm feeling chills. Look at the bumps on my goodness. Terri, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
I'll get a case.
You need to display that.
I will absolutely display that. Yeah.
Thank you for kissing the flag when other people in office don't kiss the flag. They step all over it. Thank you for doing that, Terri.
With liberty and justice for all, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. That's who I am. That is what I fight for every single day. And I give you my word. That is what I will do.
Absolutely, Terri. I know you will. Thank you so much for being on the show with me. And thank you guys so much for watching. You make my day. Continue sending emails, Donna@donnasedge.com, and vote for this lady right here. I really believe you should. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.